Can you hear me now? Testing, testing.
Let me turn that on. Okay. Good morning, everyone, on this nice brisk morning. We're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. The Texas Government Code permits this Board of Trustees to meet in a closed executive session for the following reasons, among others: to consult with the college district's attorneys on matters deemed privileged by the Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct or Government Code 551.071, to deliberate regarding real property under 551.072, a prospective gift under 551.073, certain personnel matters under 551.074, security devices or security audits under 551.076, and economic development negotiations under 551.087. If the board meets in closed session, we will announce the particular section under which we will be doing so prior to initiating the closed portion of the meeting. Now I will introduce our two students. They're going to help us with the prayer and invocation. We've got Russell Vredenberg from Albany, New York, and Asia Washington from Houston. Thank you, guys.
Dear Lord, thank you for this beautiful day you have graced us with. Lord, we come to you humbly today just to ask for your blessing and guidance. Lord, please grant us wisdom and strength before we begin this meeting. Please, Lord, allow us to communicate thoughtfully and effectively with each other in the best hopes of our students. Please, Lord, deliver us from evil so that we may spread and fill the world with your warm love. Good Lord, I just want to ask you for your blessings and guidance for every student, teacher, faculty member, and anyone who represents Blinn College. Please shine your heavenly light on us today. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thanks, guys. Russell is a history major and Asia is a business administration major. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to be with us today. Okay, it does not look like anyone has signed up for public comments, so we will move on to the report section of our meeting. And first, we're going to take Chancellor Hensley's administrative report.
Good morning, trustees, and good morning, everyone in the audience. I would like to note this morning that we have a number of people who are watching via Zoom this morning. So if the room looks a little empty, it's because several of us have some conferences to attend. So they're here, but they're not here in person. So, well, thank you again, Chair Colkhorst, and good morning to all of you trustees. It's my pleasure to share with you that for the second year in a row, the Bellwether College Consortium has named Blinn College a finalist in not one, but two categories related to innovative educational excellence. Bellwether finalists represent the leading community colleges across the country, and the consortium named finalists in three specific categories: instructional programs and services, planning, governance, and finance, and workforce development. Blinn's leadership development program, the Future Works Academy, with which you are already familiar, was named a finalist in the planning, governance, and finance category. Blinn also was named a finalist in the workforce development category for the dental hygiene program's annual Give Kids a Smile initiative, which supplies oral health care to local children who lack access to regular dental care. This annual event has provided more than $200,000 in free dental services since 2008 and is coordinated, planned, and executed by Blinn dental hygiene students as a component of their community dentistry course. In particular, I would like to congratulate Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs, Dr. Marcelo Busicki, Vice Chancellor for Health Sciences, Technical Education, and Community Programs, Jay Anderson, and all of their wonderful faculty and staff involved in these outstanding programs. Trustees, you may not quite grasp the importance of the Bellwether Awards. They are a national competition, 10 finalists in each category. It's very unusual for a college to get into one finalist ever. So the fact that Blinn got in 2 finalists last year and 2 finalists again for this year is quite an accomplishment. Again, I thank all of our Blinn faculty and staff for this wonderful achievement. Well, we started off with volleyball early this morning. So let me tell you about that. We are on the national stage again this week. We placed second at the Region 14 tournament to qualify for the NJCAA National Championship Tournament. Led by Terry Gamble, the team will head to the national tournament for the 3rd consecutive year with a 33-9 record. I'd like to congratulate Terry Gamble. You remember him, trustees. He was the coach that we honored for his 1,000th win, which is quite unusual. He and the team left this morning by bus at 4 a.m. I will be leaving immediately after the board meeting today to head to Missouri for this national tournament. So we send our very best wishes to them. Well, let's move over to our facilities updates. Trustees, the material lead times and the supply chain issues remain a concern. We've noted that almost every month, and it does continue. However, we do continue to collaborate with the construction managers at risk on each of our projects to lessen the impact. At Leroy Dreyer Field, the brick masonry and the installation of the metal canopy are complete. The interior finishes such as the ceiling grid, millwork, lockers, carpet, and flooring are nearing completion, and the installation of appliances and training equipment began this week. The finishes and the restroom accessories have been installed in the concourse restrooms, and the coaches' locker rooms are now complete. This project is scheduled for completion this month, and Lori Clark is working on a grand opening for this field house in late January. We'll give you more details to come, but in case you'd like an early announcement, we're looking at Friday, February the 27th, January, which is a Friday the 27th, correct, at 10:30 at the field house. more details to come. And then I'd like to talk about the Paralegal Program. Trustees, we are joined today by the Dean of Social Sciences, Brandon Franke, Assistant Dean of Social Sciences, Shonda Whetstone, and Paralegal Program Coordinator, Robert Stanberry, to share information regarding the college's Paralegal Program, which is, in my personal opinion, amazing. Absolutely amazing. The Paralegal Program offers students an Occupational Skills Award in Mediation, Level 2 Certificate in Legal Office, an Associate of Applied Science degree in Legal Assistant. Each of these awards can be earned entirely online and on the Brenham, Bryan, Schulenburg, and Sealy campuses. And all Paralegal Program courses are taught by practicing legal professionals, including local attorneys and judges. At this time, I would like to invite Dean Franke, Assistant Dean Whetstone, and Mr. Stanberry to the podium to share more outstanding information about this program.
Thank you, Dr. Hensley. Chair Colcourse, trustees, Dr. Hensley, thank you for having me up here to discuss this great program. I am joined with the Assistant Dean, Shonda Whetstone, Robert Stanberry, and I also have the Government and Geography Department Head, J.P. Winston, with us in attendance, so I wanted to recognize him as well. So, the Paralegal and Legal Studies program provides top assistance to lawyers and key members of the legal team. They work in private law firms and in many areas of government and business. It also provides students a path towards law school. This is a community-focused program. We have an advisory board that meets regularly to discuss necessary changes to the program to ensure graduates are equipped with the latest skills. Currently, there are 55 students majoring in the paralegal program. We have 12 different courses, and our instructors are 1 full-time professor and 5 part-time employees. All instructors are attorneys or judges and average around 25 years of experience in the field. As Dr. Hensley said, there are 3 options for degrees in this program. We have the Associate of Applied Science in Legal Assistance, which is 60 hours. We have the Certificate Level 2 in the legal office, which is 30 hours. And we also offer the Occupational Skills Award in Mediation for 9 hours. We offer different class formats as traditional, live online, blended Zoom, and flex online. We have an excellent job placement program in which we use a system of alumni to assist in procuring a job after graduation. The alumni are paralegals in all major areas of the law practice and also those who have become lawyers. Dr. Stanberry told me earlier today he received a call from yet another law office wanting to have one of our graduates come and work for them. All of our 2022 graduates currently are either employed in this field, they are or are continuing their education working towards a bachelor's degree, and with the vast majority of these are in the law firms. For extracurricular opportunities, we have the Legal Assistant Student Organization, which is a service organization through Student Life. It hosts an annual forum of Brazos Valley paralegals. This serves as a networking and informational event for students. We also have every year the 10th Court of Appeals come to Blinn College, and they hold a session. This is the 11th year, I believe, that they have been on campus. They always enjoy coming in and being on campus with us. And I was very pleased that 3 of the 4 lawyers that were on site to argue their cases had the opportunity to address the crowd. And when they did, they talked about how wonderful the paralegals are from our program. We have several transfer agreements where students can go to a 4-year institution if that is their choosing. We have a Bachelor of Applied Arts agreement with Sam Houston State University, which transfers into a general studies. Through Tarleton State University at Rellis, we have they can transfer into criminal justice. And through University of Houston at Victoria, we have a legal assistant and administration program. Thank you. Questions?
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you, Dean Cronke and Assistant Dean Whitstone and Mr. Stanberry. I was privileged to be able to attend the 10th Court of Appeal a week ago, and the Chief Justice and all of the other justices, the other two, were just so complimentary. For the first time, we moved the court hearing from the Bryan campus to the Rellis campus. And you know how we can divide that large room in half, but we didn't on this one. We had a full house. So Robert Stanberry and his team bussed our students over from Bryan also to be able to come. We couldn't fill that room. That would be a challenge because that room holds about 500, but the room was comfortably full, I'll put it that way. I was particularly interested in going to this every year. So if you'll just give me a moment of personal privilege. The first year I came, Robert asked me to come, and I thought, how interesting. Is this real? Are we really having the 10th Court of Appeals here, or is this a mock ceremony or mock trial or something? But it's real. And they have been coming to Blinn every year. And so as soon as Robert gives me the date, which is I will give to you, it's usually the Wednesday after, tell me again. That's it. After the time changes, it's the following Wednesday. And I was privileged one year to hear opposing counsel were both former Texas Supreme Court Chief Justices. That's probably a one-time only event that would occur in the state. So that was quite interesting to watch two former chiefs present opposing positions. The cases are often tied to something that would be of interest to Bryan College Station. Not always, but they usually hear 4 cases, and one of them is typically something that would involve something that would relate to College Station, I would say, or to Bryan. Also, sometimes they relate to something in the news. Last year, it had to do with a Tesla car and the uniqueness of having 12 cameras on that car and the ability to run tape afterwards so that you could see before and after. And the argument there was how many minutes or how many hours or days before a particular incident occurred, a car wreck occurred, could the people get tape, the availability of tape to see what happened. They're always interesting. Sometimes they're very pulling at your heartstrings a little. They definitely have some murders and assaults and accidents and various things that occur that are being appealed. They don't make a decision that day. They go back, they deliberate. They've explained to our students how that deliberation occurs back and forth among the justices. And then ultimately they will come out with a response, and it's put online. And so Robert lets me know when that is, and we're all kind of going in to see if we were able to guess, what the outcome of that was going to be. Sometimes I'm quite surprised, and sometimes I think, yes, I got it. Anyway, I highly encourage you. I'm going to ask Lori to put that one on the board calendar. It is really a wonderful, wonderful opportunity for our students, and one for which Blinn should take great pride in the ability to bring the justices to this community. So Brandon, thank you. And thank you, Shonda, and thank you, all of you. I appreciate you so much. If you'll express our appreciation to your wonderful students as well. And as I said, Blinn is oftentimes looking for paralegals ourselves, and we'd love to hire our own graduates. And we have a paralegal right now who went through the Blinn program, who's an outstanding employee. With that, I'm going to go ahead and turn the microphone over to Chair Colkhorst, and thank you all, and wish you coming up next week a very happy and blessed Thanksgiving holiday.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Hensley. Now we'll move on to item B. Under 4, presentation of financial statement package for the period ending October 31st, 2022. And I believe Mr. Cervantes will take that.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Hensley, members of the board. The chancellor mentioned that there were people that could not attend here. We have the auditors here. I may have to phone a friend if there's a question that comes at me that I cannot address. We are in the second month of the fiscal year. This is through the month of October, 17% of the way through the year. Our revenue through October is $26.6 million. Our expenses are 26.2, and our net is at 339,000. When we compare that to last year through October, we had $26.6 million in revenue through October this year, and then last year we had 24.6, almost $2 million above what we had last year. In addition to that, it really would take it above. We had 150,000 last year in HERF money that obviously that would push us over the top. Our total expenses this year through October, 26.2. Expenses last year were 24.3. Again, close to $2 million, $1.9 million more. Our net change in fund balance, 339,000 compared to 310 last year, 311, which leaves us about $29,000 more. And as I said, there's another 150,000 we probably could have tacked onto that. We're going to take that privilege now, Mr. Chairman, because we're probably not going to get that as we move further along. The HERF money is going to way outdistance us. The changes or the revenue comparison by source is pretty close to what we had last year. I did want to point out property taxes looks a little bit less. I think that could be a timing issue. The interest is 400% more because of the rates we're taking advantage of to the extent that we can. The other looks a little bit higher because we had, again, some timing issues that are in there. We're having some revenue that we received this year earlier than what we received last year. Tuition and fees revenue compared to budget, we budgeted $73.5 million. We're at $16.8 million, which is 23% of our budget. Our tuition revenue compared to this year, compared to last year, is $446,000, a 5% increase. Most of that is, you can see in district is above, a little bit higher, but not much. Out of district is the bulk of that, accounts for $338,000. Out of state is also up sizably, $342,000. Our fee revenue is also up compared to last year, 7%, $480,000. General fee is the largest part of that, $362,000. We have another $100,000 in the lab course technology fee that we've added this year. Our housing and food service revenue compared to budgeted, we budgeted $10.8 million. We're at 2.2, 20% more than what we had last year. Looking at all of the auxiliary revenue, we are almost 600,000 above, 24%. Housing, you can see, is actually on the far left. It's a little bit down, but that's can be understandable. We removed three of the dorms from our inventory, so that's a big explanation for that. Food service is up almost 200,000. Bookstore is also up 374,000. That's mostly from the commissions that we had received from Barnes and Noble. So our total expenses compared to last year are $1.9 million more. The bulk of that is in the E&G. We are seeing, as we've been saying, the travel and the office supplies, the consumables are coming back. But we also had an increase in the salaries and benefits that's reflected in the line above that, the 5 to 6%. But payroll is still in line with what we've had in previous years, 51%. It's almost identical except for fiscal year 2021, which there's an anomaly there. It's going to be the COVID years. It's always going to be there. I did have staff look into the services. I see a nice trend line that's going up in the middle of the slide there, almost doubling from what we had in 2019. Those are professional services that we've added more of as we've had more construction, hiring more architects and the like. Insurance, I think I mentioned this last month too, is up. I think this is a timing issue too, 1.45. Our expense comparison by category, almost $2 million more, 8%. Even though the percentage in salary in the far left is showing it's a decline, we are up in salaries. And then E&G expenditures, as I mentioned, is the largest part of that, the travel and the consumables. Our operating expense by function, almost every one of these, the instruction, the academic support, the institutional support, physical plant, all of those are above. You can look at some of that as the payroll, 60% or 70, close to 65% of our expenses are in payroll. So that's going to be up with our increases, and then the consumables and the travel. Student financial aid, our student cash and refunds in October were 4.8. The largest portion of that is the $2.2 million that we reimbursed ourselves from the Department of Education. You see, we issued refunds on the left, $2.3 million to students, but we received payments from them almost $5 million. Our other cash receipts in October, $3.6 million. The largest portion of that is the state appropriation on the bottom, almost $2.5 million, and another $728 on the far right from grants, contracts, property tax. And then we're still receiving a small amount for insurance proceeds for the damages that we had. And then the interest rate is bringing in more. Our use of cash in October was up considerably from what we normally have. You see the debt service on the right is the big explanation for it. We made a bond payment at the very beginning of October, $6.9 million. We're still having expenses in construction as we're finalizing some of those invoices, $1.7 million. Accounts payable is about the same, almost $3 million. We transferred money to Servitas, over $800,000. Our payroll is about the same, 5.7. So we had a decrease in unrestricted cash and cash equivalents. The cash that we received from students was 4.8. The cash we received from other sources, 3.6. But we used $18.2 million worth of cash, which led to a net decrease in cash in October of 9.8. We pulled some of the money that we kept in the bank from last month, 3.2, and we decreased our some of the funds that were in the pools that are the most liquid of what we have, 6.6. So that leaves us with an unrestricted cash and cash equivalents through the end of October of $125.1 million. Still keeping on the very bottom, the $60 million for our reserves, the projects that have been funded by the board, $40.4 million, and we have available to us funding available for new projects, 25.2. When we compare that to last year, the unrestricted cash and cash equivalents at this point was $127 million. So we're pretty much in line. I'll stand for any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone?
I have a couple of questions.
Yes, sir. Mr. Krausen.
Two questions, Mr. Fontes. One, a little bit confusing. On the statement of operating revenue, it shows that the state appropriations this month is exactly what it was last year. Is that typical of this time of year?
It will be identical for the biennium. It's
Okay.
exactly the same.
Just
yeah.
because they split it in half. Okay. The second question is, when you said that the revenue from housing was down because we took 3 dorms offline, we also added a dorm.
We added a dorm that is for private purposes. So we have a P3. So that does not belong to Blinn. That revenue just,
So that doesn't go in that
it
housing
will
revenue?
ultimately, but at the end of the next year, and ultimately that ends up being in the following year because they have to audit their statements. So that's the explanation for that. Now, last year too, Dr. Krause, is a good question. Dr. Krause, you would think that we would be able to add some more, but it was not a great year for housing last year. So I don't even think we haven't received anything from Mill Creek yet, but it's always because we're always a year behind. And so the money that we would, if we had received any money in this fiscal year, it won't show up. It'll be for next fiscal year, and it will show up November, December.
So we didn't receive any from Mill Creek though.
You have not received, we've received money in the past, but for the year before, during COVID, it was a very down year. So I think they were doing good to break even, but that still is in the works.
Are there any, yes, sir.
What was the $800,000 payment to Servitas now specifically? What was that?
Those would generally be, Mr. Moser, those would generally be payments that we make for tuition that we've received funds from students. So we're giving them money back for tuition, or I'm saying tuition, I'm sorry, it's for residential, for their fees for housing. We collect the fees for them, but then we turn them over at the end of every month.
And that's
They're-
who,
and
that's
they're-
who operates, the new P3?
Both of them.
Certificates, both of them?
Both of them.
Okay.
And there are occasionally, we'll see, in the category this year, I noticed that the other category was up, the revenue was up, fairly, I almost doubled from what we had in previous years. And a portion of that is them reimbursing us for expenses that we incur on their behalf, but then they have to pay us back too. So it works both ways. We do not put that in the housing report, though. It's in a different category. If that makes any sense.
That's it. Other
That's the other category.
other sources under auxiliary enterprises?
Correct.
Are there any areas under revenue that you have any concerns, any trends that are troubling to you?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I certainly like the trends for tuition and fees. It's going in the right direction. Only other one that's standing out as interest is the 400%. They're all trending up in revenue. So nothing there that really causes me any alarm. It's actually the opposite, as long as we're able to sustain it. You typically have through the first fall or through the first semester, we look to see that the revenue somewhere coming in is somewhere around 45 to 50% of our overall budget. And right now we're at 22, 23%, and we still have a couple months left. So I think we're in the right place.
Anyone else have any questions?
I have, to be clear, I want to follow up about what Dennis said, that regardless of the money, but what's the number of people we have in dorms this year equal to what it was last year, or above or below in numbers? Just
You're talking about the occupancy, not the revenue, right? So the occupancy, Mr. Moser, is a little bit up. So the occupancy looks good for Blinn dorms, but because we removed 3 of them, we lost that revenue, and that now is going towards Prairie Lee, and we had that by design. So it shows us not receiving that revenue at this juncture. We will receive some from last year if there's any, and I'm not thinking there's going to be very much from Mill Creek. But generally they audit their reports. Their fiscal year ends at a different time, ends at the end of June, and then they audit it, and the audit generally is not done until November. At that point, if there's anything left over, that's when we count the chips to see whether or not anything comes over to Blinn. So we're early.
Thank you. I think, Trustee Mosier, that while that we've lost those 3 buildings and the revenue associated with them, we've also lost the expenses that were associated with those. So I'm pretty sure the expenses on those older facilities, when you consider deferred maintenance, so forth and so on, was pretty high. So I think we can't just look at the revenue side. We need to look at what we've saved on the expense side too, even though it's hard to figure out where they are in all the numbers.
That's correct.
Any other thoughts or questions? Thank you very much. Okay, we will move on now to the consent agenda item 5. All items listed in this portion of the agenda are considered to be routine by the Board of Trustees and will be enacted upon one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless the trustees so request, in which event the item will be removed from consent and considered in discussion and possible action. Trustees receive agenda materials in advance of the meeting to prepare for this business to be conducted. Item A, approval of minutes for the October 11th, 2022 board workshop. and B, approval of minutes for the October 18th, 2022 regular meeting. I would look for a motion to approve.
I move we adopt the consent.
Trustee
decree and
Wells.
secretary.
Trustee Aylert, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Thank you so much. Now we will move on to item 6 on the agenda, discussion and possible action items. Item A, adoption of final redistricting resolution and map for the Board of Trustees precincts. Mr. Schubert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Hensley, fellow trustees. It's great to be with you all today. This is a continuing of our conversation that we had last meeting, the October meeting with our attorney Sid Falk about redistricting. You've got the maps and the resolution proposed in your packet. Just a reminder that we do mirror our trustee precincts along the lines of the Washington County Commissioner precincts. That's a longstanding tradition we have. So those are mirrored in that. And happy to answer any additional questions if you should have any on those maps in the resolution.
You need a motion.
Yes, we do need a motion to adopt the proposed maps.
All right, I'm looking for a motion to adopt. Trustee
moved.
Bohart. Trustee Benke, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries.
Thank you, trustees.
Okay, item B, discussion and approval of policy priorities for the 88th session of the Texas Legislature. Mr. Schubert.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, fellow trustees, Dr. Hensley. As you know, session is coming up. The 88th session will start the second Tuesday of January. Hard to believe we've got another one upon us, but it is here. Pre-filing of bills started yesterday. The report that I was looking at the end of yesterday, there were already over 800 bills filed at the end of yesterday. So I imagine now that's probably around 1,000, depending on how many have been filed this morning and throughout the day. So they're well on their way, and we start organizing and categorizing all those together. Normally how this works is we work with the Texas Association of Community Colleges, TAC, and several other organizations and develop the policy priorities for the upcoming session. And then we bring that to the board for final approval. That gives us kind of the guidance and shows you what we're going to be working on this session. This session timing has been slightly different than normal. And part of that is because the main part of that is because of the Texas Commission on Community College Finance. As you know, that commission was established last session. They've been working throughout the interim to work through their items, and they have released a draft set of recommendations, which is included in your packet. However, they have not released their final recommendations yet. So once the commission reaches their final recommendations, that's submitted to the legislature. And then, of course, that's when the bills start getting drafted, the policies start getting thrown around. So at this point, we are not sure how the legislature is going to respond to the report that they received from the commission. First of all, it's not finalized. And second of all, there will be some time there that the legislature needs to work on that. I don't make too many guarantees about the legislature, but I will say it will look different than what the commission recommends. It will not be word for word. So we're still monitoring that. And so the reason we're not asking necessarily for an approval today, this is more of an update, is until we have the commission release their final report, the bills start getting drafted, we're not sure exactly how that's going to look. So we didn't necessarily want you guys to approve a policy priority that says Blinn supports the work of the Finance Commission when we don't even know what that's actually going to mean in reality for the legislature. The other part about that timing is that TAC has not finalized their priorities either because of the legislature. Also in your packet, you're going to see a draft list of priorities from TAC. That's not final, but those are some draft ones that have been thrown around. You see they're very short. They need to be fleshed out a little bit more. And part of that timing is also based on the commission not finishing their work and not really releasing their final report just yet. So we wanted to just kind of give you a framework of where we are, where we're going, and then we will come back at a future meeting once a lot of that gets worked out, the details get worked out, and we'll finalize those policy priorities. But generally speaking, we're going to have 3 major policy priorities for this upcoming session, subject to what comes out of the final work of the commission. The first one will be related to the commission, of course. And in the draft recommendations that you see in your packet, there's several items, but the main change that the commission is recommending right now, of course, as you know, state funding accounts for about 26% of our budget. That is broken down into three categories: contact hours, success points, and core funding. Core funding, every single community college gets roughly $1.4 million just because you exist. You get that core funding. That's the same for every community college. Currently, the vast portion of state funding is through contact hour funding, the number of contact hours our students are receiving. And then, of course, we have success points, which account for a little bit more of that as well. And y'all are well aware of that. The recommendation from the commission is to change that the major funding source would be success point funding, what is called outcome-based funding, as opposed to contact hour funding. So that's the main change that the commission has recommended. That is a major change, and that's going to be good for Blinn. We're very successful in outcome-based funding. We've talked about our transfers and all those sort of things that really hit home for us. We've also talked previously about how some of our changes and programs have resulted in an increase in success point funding for Blinn over the last two sessions. So I am confident about Blinn's ability to be very successful in an outcome-based funding standpoint. Unfortunately, that's not going to be the same for every community college. Some of the smaller community colleges rightfully have some concern, because if you don't have enough students to generate enough success points, and that's your main point of funding, then there's going to be an issue there. And there's been lots of talk with the commission and with TAC about hold harmless funding, about if there are some of those community colleges that under the new formula do not have at least what they had last session, there'll be some hold harmless there to fill that gap. In order so that no community college would walk away with less money, hopefully, than what they did before. So still some great work to do there. We will continuing to monitor that commission and how the legislature responds to that, but that'll be one of our policy priorities. The other, the second policy priority, and you're going to look in your packet and see the TAC list, we will be having a policy priority that kind of combines some of these TAC items together into one to show our support for several of those items. And then, of course, the final policy priority that we have talked about on several occasions is the potential service area expansion in Western Harris County. We still continue to work on that. That will be one of the policy priorities that we will present to the board when that timing is ready. So those will be our three main policy priorities that we'll bring at a future date once the bills start getting drafted for the commission and we see how that actually looks on the ground and how that will impact Blinn. Happy to answer any other questions. That's where we're going, and we'll, like I said, we'll bring that back at a future meeting.
Yes, sir, Douglas.
Mr. Chairman, I had the opportunity to, I guess you could say, virtually attend a CCAT webinar a week or two ago that addressed a lot of what Leighton has here. There are a few things in there other than the part he mentioned about measurable outcomes that I think are also going to benefit Blinn College going forward if they are indeed implemented. The other is a paid work-based learning opportunity, which I think will allow employers to get their employees trained while they are still working for the employer. There's also a plan to provide for seed grants for programs in high demand fields, something that I think also could benefit Blinn College as we move forward. And I think one of the other things they were talking about, much like Leighton mentioned, was these smaller colleges. There was a mention of possibly shared services for which Blinn College could potentially assist some of these smaller colleges, primarily in the rural sectors of the state, to keep them viable. So it was a pretty interesting webinar. So I believe that after all my years, I think hopefully this will gain some traction in the legislature. So it'll be good for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Douglas. Any other questions? Okay, so is there an action that we need to take on this?
No action needed at this time, Mr. Chairman. We'll have the action once the bills start getting drafted about the commission.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we will now move on to item 7 on our agenda, trustee comment.
Trustees, we've had a request from Trustee Bohart to make a comment this morning. So at this time, I'd like to call on him.
Thank you, Dr. Hensley, Chair Colkhorst. I want to start by asking a question. How many of you were part of the Blinn family in May of 2010? No, Richard was, Mr. Frankie was, and Deborah Barbara was. So good. There are only 3 fact checkers here as I speak for the rest of the day. And I'm going back to that time because my desire to serve on the Board of Trustees of Blinn College evolved soon after the retirement of Dr. Don Volter. Many of us know him well, as I felt that the new leadership at that time was on a pathway to significantly alter the college's past successes and future sustainability. So in January of 2010, I made the decision to place my name on the ballot to represent the people of Washington County Precinct 2 on the Blinn College Board of Trustees. The race for that position was the first race in at least 2 decades at that time in which an incumbent was standing for re-election. My stated objectives in seeking that board position were sent to all the registered voters in Washington County, and those objectives were as follows. My objectives: to foster a shared environment throughout the college to promote excellence in education, to promote transparency in board actions, to ensure that the college is proactive in responding to community educational and training needs, and lastly, to support a skilled, dedicated, and respected faculty and staff. And at the closing of the polls on May 8th, 2010, I had received over 76% in votes from the citizens of Washington County, and they therefore chose me to represent them on the Blinn College Board of Trustees. So on May 18th, 2010, I took my oath of office and then began my journey as a member of the Board of Trustees. I joined the board at what was probably one of the most troubling times in Blinn's long history. And the 5 years, or the first 5 years of my journey on this board, were bumpy. For those of you who were here, it was bumpy to say the least. During those 5 years, the board faced numerous and continually cascading challenges, and the board recognized that a change was needed to first steady the college, and second, to somehow and in some way engineer a new direction for Blinn College. As I sit here today, I believe that those new directional efforts have been achieved and continue to flourish, and that Blinn College is in a good position for continued growth and success. Throughout my journey, I have had the privilege to share many moments, both good and some not so good, with fellow board members, administrators, faculty, staff, students, and the citizens of the Blinn College service area. I have participated in countless discussions and been a part of many successes and, of course, some setbacks, and have even endured the occasional vilification from detractors. And through it all, I believe that I always maintained a high level of honesty, integrity, and independence in my actions and voting. From the first day on May 18th, 2010, up to today, I feel that I have never lost sight of the fact that my job as an elected official was to uphold the public's trust by listening, studying, acting, leading, and yes, even fighting for things that have made Blinn what it is today. But just as my journey on the Blinn College Board of Trustees had a beginning, so too does it need to have an ending. So today, I am announcing that I will not be running for re-election in 2023. It is time to pass the baton to another, whose duty will be, in my opinion, to number one, act on behalf of and for the benefit of the Blinn College community. Two, advocate for the college and those it serves. Three, to commit time and effort to learn and apply best practices in board governance. Four, to shape consensus among groups and individuals with competing interests. And five, to serve without personal gain. I know that there are individuals residing in Precinct 2 of Washington County who can contribute their time and talents to the Blinn Board and hopefully step up to fill the position that I am leaving. In closing, I am extremely proud of my service on the Board of Trustees and hope that my contributions have outweighed my shortcomings. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of the Blinn family.
Thank you, Douglas. And I know I speak on behalf of this board when I say how much we appreciate the time and attention. And when I say attention, Douglas gives this a lot of attention. He does not take anything for granted. And, you know, we're going to miss that. We're going to miss the level of detail that you put into this position. And I hope that we find someone that will give the same amount of care that you have. So thank you very much.
Trustee Bohart, I've told you this privately and I'll tell you again publicly. I think you will go down in the annals of history of Blinn College as one of the outstanding trustees who helped to lead this college forward in so many significant ways. On behalf of the administration, our faculty, our staff, and our students, we thank you for your leadership on this board, and we appreciate you very much. And we wish you all the best, and we hope that you will continue to participate in Blinn activities. I think you will, but perhaps not as a trustee, but just as a great supporter. With that, we thank you so much.
Okay. Well, we are going to move on to item 8 and the agenda, the executive session portion in accordance with 551.071 and 551.072. It is 10:50 a.m. Yeah, let's take a 10-minute break and we'll go into executive session.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.